everyone, and welcome to Clooney Watches channel. As you can see, today's video we are starting straight out from Clooney's watch studio, simply for the purpose of reducing length of the video. And frankly, I consider today's video relatively monumental, at least to me personally, for two reasons. Well, first reason being that I am talking about and comparing three significant Rolex subs, green subs, from a brand that I genuinely admire, and I consider myself genuine, true Rolex enthusiast. And the second reason being is that I think this is a video just appropriate for the fact that my channel has achieved 1.5 million views and it's reaching 10,000 subscribers. So thank you to all of you for supporting Genuine Watch Enthusiast channel and allowing me to exist on YouTube. Going back to the watches, we see three outstanding green Rolex subs in the order of their release, and everything started with this bad boy. You see, this is original 2003 issued Rolex Kermit. Rolex released this in 2003 and reference number was 16610 LV to mark the 50th anniversary of the first ever issued Submariner in 1954. Iconic diver from Rolex company. And you might find it kind of interesting, at least I did, that they issued this actually 49 years after the Submariner was out, rather than 50. And I'm just kind of joking with that, thinking maybe they knew that wait times for Rolex subs are going to be so long, so they did it a year ahead. No, just a joke, relevant to our reality of today in the aspect of purchasing Rolex watches. Now, at this time, when this watch came out, it wasn't as bad. This watch became an instant classic, instant hit with the Rolex fans and beyond watch enthusiasts due to its standout green bezel, which is aluminum bezel, kind of lime green, lighter green, and it got its name Kermit, which I think is also a sign not only of the color of the bezel, but also kind of endearment in the aspect that they just loved this watch so much. And the Kermit stayed in a production for 7 years, exiting the Rolex range in 2010. And then this was what came after, the Rolex Hulk. And you know what? Again, names are funny. They carry certain characteristics of the watches. I think it's obvious color-wise why they called it Hulk. But there is another reason. Hulk is powerful, muscled, big, large. And you know what? This is a watch that came out in the maxi case. They're both maxi dials, so much more legible than previous Rolex subs. But one thing that separates the Kermit case from this case is the size of the case. The much thicker lugs give the appearance of the larger watch. So I'm not surprised that these two watches were given the names not just based on color, but the other characteristics seen among the watch enthusiasts. So when we're looking at the dials, at the first glance, the differences between Kermit and Hulk are obvious. I mean, you will see the green dial, you will see the black dial. This green dial actually is referred to by Rolex itself as the green gold, and the dial achieves certain reflection and shine by mixing gold into the dial itself. And I think it's beautiful. I mean, it's a very interesting how, depending on the angle and how the light hits this dial, it can appear green or it can appear black, just like a Kermit. Yet, there is a controversy among the hardcore Rolex fans who simply feel that black dial is a true Rolex sub dial, and the black dial is the dial that reflects on the true Submariner legacy. Hey, it's always going to be debates. People will debate no matter what. That's maybe a good thing. I think both dials are beautiful, and in certain ways, different is good. The Hawks dial has a distinctive shine, and I think this is something I really like about it. The bezel is the other obvious difference. Obviously, color. Obviously, the material. We have aluminum bezel on the original Kermit, and we have a ceramic bezel on a Hawk. When it comes to Kermit, original Kermit, there is always so many controversies about this watch, and relevant all to bezel, because let's be honest, what separates this watch from previous subs is that bezel. Excuse me. So ultimately, we've seen variations of them. At one point, a big controversy was about number 4, and that's the number I'm pointing right here. So what happened here was that Rolex issued a certain number of them with what they call Fat 4, which was kind of flattened. It had more distinctive number 4. So now the collectors went crazy for that model, and only because it had a slightly stumpier feather number 4. From a functional point of view, the Kermit bezel is same as any other sub, unidirectional. When it comes to Hawk, introduction of the green, and let's just hear the bezel. Let's enjoy the crispiness of the best bezel on the market, by far. Just a little intermezzo. Hey, oops, I went too far, and I'm compulsive. Anyway, so advantages, in my opinion, are obvious. Well, first, it's a scratch resistant. Some complain it's not going to age. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm not a vintage guy. It doesn't affect my affinity to the watch. And I think the color is more Rolex. This lime green is not really Rolex corporate color. This British green is certainly more Rolex color. So there is an argument now for those talking about the Kermit beer more Rolex from the perspective of the authenticity, connection to the brand. I can say the same thing here. The color green on this watch is much more relevant to green of Rolex. One thing that I mentioned even earlier is how they achieved to get these two watches, which are same size, 40 millimeter, look different in size. A Hawk is certainly looking larger, and it came through a period when larger watches were popular. But Rolex was cautious. So Rolex is very conservative. Rolex evolves. They don't run crazy. They don't follow trends exactly and directly. They have their own path. So they managed to give appearance of a larger watch just by thicker lugs and maxi case. Yet it's still very thin case. It's still beautifully wearable watch. Let's take a look how it actually looks on the wrist, and you'll get the idea. Yeah, so it does appear larger, but on my 7.25-inch wrist, this watch, in my humble opinion, looks perfect. Okay, so for comparison reason, let's take a look at the aluminum Kermit and see how it wears. And yeah, it's very nice. It's a little more elegant. It's a little more this bezel. It's a little more, I would say, it's just more classic, less sporty. How's that? And I think the main difference from the perspective, if you want to simplify, why is this happening? Well, it's truly because of the lugs. Lugs are playing a big optical game on us when it comes to these two watches. And I think they are what makes the difference from the perspective of how it appears in a size. The bracelets are also very different. There are many who don't find these bracelets sufficient for the quality and reputation of the Rolex. We have here actually oyster lock clasp, stamped. I love these. I am not complaining. I actually find them very comfortable on the wrist, and then you clasp, right? But they are not as sturdy. They're not as quality relevant, quality equivalent to what Rolex managed to do with new subs and create one of the best bracelets on the watch market. Also, very useful glide lock clasp, which you basically can adjust the size so conveniently by 2mm increments and make this watch fit you to perfection. Certainly this bracelet is premium quality. There is hardly anything, if anything, that compares to it on the market. And then finally, let's talk about the movement on these two watches, which we can do at the same time because it's actually same movement. The reason why we can talk about the movement on both of these watches right away is because it's the same movement. It's a movement 3135, which was found across many Rolex models and has been in production, believe it or not, since 1988. It's a quite dependable movement. There's not a lot to talk here. If there is a minus about this movement, which becomes addressed in 2020 with this new Kermit, is the 48 hours power reserve. But the movement is cost certified, quite dependable, keeping exceptional good time, and it's just a classic Rolex. Now, what happens in 2020? Well, the new Kermit came out, and it is the Rolex Submariner 12661 LV, which revives the classic Kermit green bezel and black dial with more subdued, luxurious, and modern style. It answers the prayers to those who felt that black dial is extremely important and iconic to Rolex subline, yet it provides the perfect, genuine Rolex green on its absolutely gorgeous ceramic bezel. You know, let's point out what are the main differences on this new Kermit versus Hulk and discuss them a little bit. So this new model, they're following key updates, and we're talking here Kermit, and first difference obviously is the dial, green dial versus traditional black dial. The new Kermit is a 41mm case diameter versus 40mm from the previous reference, which we call Hulk. A very important update, redesigned thinner lugs on Kermit versus Hulk. A matte black dial matching a ceramic green bezel versus the sunburst green dial with green bezel. And I think superior 32-35 movement. When you handle this Kermit for the first time, there is actually no perception of case size increase. In fact, the exact diameter of the new Kermit is 40.8 millimeter versus 40.3 millimeter from the Hulk. So the actual difference is just a half a millimeter. And what I think happens here is that you will notice a streamlined profile. And redesigned lugs, which better harmonize with the overall design. You can see it comparison right here. So the external lug with that has been reduced from 27.5 millimeter to 26.7 millimeter, while simultaneously enlarging the bracelet width at the lugs from 20 millimeter to 21 millimeter. From a design point of view, we consider the new case lugs bracelet ensemble an improvement, and what I mean by we, it is the Rolex enthusiasts. Some might disagree, but I think majority see it in that way. Also, I really do have to say that ultimately, like it or not, this model achieves what is important to us who are really focused on heritage, and that is that this generation is more in line with the historical models. Wearability, you're asking. Oh, listen, this watch is perfection. It wears truly perfect. Now, to mention a little bit about movement, it's actually not new in a Rolex line, in a Rolex company. It's new in this line, but it was introduced in 2017 in the Sea Dweller 43 millimeter. And that caliber 32-35 replaces, I have to say, glorious and historically important caliber 31-35. The new movement incorporates the patented Chron Energy escapement, which combines high energy efficiency with great dependability. It's made of nickel phosphorus. It is also insensitive to magnetic interference. And thanks to innovative geometry, the efficiency of this escapement is improved by 15%. I think what's important to us as users, as consumers, is that this caliber allows for 70 hours of power reserve, which comes very handy, and which simply puts Rolex in a place where it needs to be. The bracelet on this watch is also gorgeous. It's a remodeled solid link oyster bracelet in 904L steel, flawlessly executed with its broad, flat, 3-piece links with satin finish surfaces and polished sides. It is equipped with the oyster oak safety clasp that prevents accidental openings and remarkable glide lock system, which allows, just as in the previous one, Hulk, adjustments in 2 millimeter increments, giving opportunity to a person being lucky to wear this beautiful watch, perfect fit. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. These are the 3 superstars from the Sub line, which in my humble opinion is the most important line among Rolex watches. I am, from those who know me, big fan of 2 lines, which is GMT and Sub. And I hope that this presentation gives you the opportunity to actually see these watches next to each other, get a better understanding of what they are all about. Once again, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your support, and all the best to all of you from Bear Clooney.